You're listening to a Mash Those Buttons production. Visit us at mashthosebuttons.com.
Welcome to Warcraft Reloaded, a podcast brought to you by Mash Those Buttons, covering World of Warcraft Classic and its community. I am Bobby, also known as Blazzinbob, and today I'm here with two special guests, the co-GM leaders of the guild Vargflocken on Whitemane. Welcome Harskare to the show for the second time.
Thank you. Looking forward to it.
And also welcome iddqd. How are you doing, brother?
Hey, thank you for having me today, Bob. I'm doing good. Doing good.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm pretty excited to get into this. What we have in our guild with the co-GMs is a very interesting dynamic, and I'm interested to see how you guys, work through it and what your thought processes are.
For sure.
First off, we're gonna get to know iddqd real quick, because if you're curious about Harskare, you can check out episode 6 of the podcast where I had him on, and you can go back and listen to that. But we're going to get to know IDD just a little bit. So IDD, when did you start playing World of Warcraft in the beginning?
So it's one of those old stories when I was just back in my school. I was doing 9th grade, and a friend of mine was saying, like, I should probably check out a game called World of Warcraft. And at the time, I kind of just enjoyed, your good old FPS games, Quake, Doom, all those kind of games. And I wasn't really interested in the MMO genre at the time, but he convinced me. And I think this was back in late 2004, or it was early 2005. Either way, I played it for a little bit, and I've been hooked up ever since.
Awesome. And how long did you play WoW for? Are you still currently a retail player?
I would say so, yes. It's taken a little bit of a break in Shadowlands, but I've definitely been playing throughout all expansions.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, Harskare said that he quit, or that he never quit either, right?
Yeah, not fully. Anyways, I've taken like year-long breaks during stuff like Mist of Pandaria and stuff, but I've played every single expansion up to now. Yeah. Awesome.
Well, one of the other questions we'd like to ask is, did you play vanilla private servers?
I'd like to think that at some point I tried it. I don't think I took it seriously enough, though, so I don't think that's a qualifying answer. Tried it, didn't really get to max level and play it out, so.
Yeah, I had kind of heard about them, but I just figured they wouldn't be that very popular, so I just never tried, and I kind of regret not trying, because that would have been neat to go to every few years or so, All right, what is your favorite expansion of all time? And since you've played them all, which is it?
I think, since I'm a little bit of a lore nerd, I think Wrath of the Lich King in terms of lore. I really enjoy that story arc, and obviously Lich King is probably everyone's favorite villain, and for good reasons. In terms of every other aspect, I really enjoyed Legion. I thought Legion was a great expansion, and I think they did a lot of things right there.
Awesome. Yeah, I forget, Harskare, what was your favorite?
To be honest, my answer could have changed since the last time, but I'm a big fan of TBC and Wrath, with the introduction of Arena and then just like furthering the complexity of it and stuff in Wrath. Yeah, I love those two expansions.
Yeah, I teeter, man. It's either TBC or Wrath, and I don't know. Probably just the first part of Wrath would be my favorite, but TBC is real close, so it's just hard. All right, so IDD, you currently play Alliance, and I know your girlfriend loves Alliance, so I don't know if she, kind of helped along with your decision, but who do you actually like the most, Horde or Alliance?
It's kind of funny. Just before Classic actually got released, we had a group of friends who were just trying to decide what we wanted to do, and honestly, leading up to the actual launch date, it was back and forth. One day was Horde, one day was Alliance, one day was Horde and Alliance, and it just went back and forth until we sort of settled on Alliance, because like I was actually looking into what I wanted to play, and initially it wasn't Rogue. Initially it was Warlock. So I think when I made the swap between playing Warlock to Rogue, I had PvP in mind, and for me, Human Rogue felt a little bit more to my liking, because that's kind of what I played back in 2004/5 as well. I played a Human Rogue as well, and I was just like, maybe I should just do it the way I did, just with different experience. So I went from wanting to play Warlock, and at that time I was like, dude, Undead Warlock, best combo, I want to play it. But then Human Rogue just became a little bit better in my mind, so we kind of just went Alliance the day off of the launch, actually.
And actually, sorry.
So yeah, no, I actually, no, looking back at it, I actually do prefer Alliance.
Yeah, I actually think I prefer the Alliance more too. I played Horde a lot, but you talked about Rogue, and I've went through the entirety of Classic just missing being a Rogue, like missing stealth. And I think if I had to do it over again, I would be Rogue over Warrior. But that's a side tangent. One real quick thing I do want to throw in here at the end of this is you also got rank 14 in PvP pretty early on. Like you just replaced your swords or your sword with a Gressel as of late. And what was the rank 14? The TLDR version of it. What was that grind like? Because you were running the guild while doing it.
Yeah, I mean, also having to do a real life job at the side of it. No, but initially when I started out doing the grind, I wasn't really expecting much. I knew it was a grind, and I'm no stranger to that kind of stuff. I mean, I play a lot of grinding games, and I don't really, they don't really face me that much. So when people were saying that, I was thinking about doing the grind, people were like, you're out of your mind. It's going to take many, many months, and you're going to have to persevere around, frustration and people you don't want to play with, etc., etc. And I was like, man, sounds like a challenge to me. So I started it, and it went really well. It started with World PvP when the first phase came out, and then the honor system was implemented, and I was doing really well with the World PvP stuff. I was duo PvPing with another rogue from Vargflocken as well, and we managed to get a top 10 consecutive weeks in a row. And at that point, we put ourselves in a really good position to continue. And when the actual BGs came out, I was asked if I wanted to, because people check the rankings and see what people are, and they kind of want to group up with people who are around the same kind of bracket. And, I said yes. I said, why not? Let's do it. And we managed to form a really good team. And it was actually kind of smooth sailing. I think the only annoying part was that you had to spend, 15 hours a day with people that sometimes have strong opinions. I kind of just hid in the back and just did my job. But I think we were, if I'm correct, I was the third generation. So there were there were two generations before me when I got my blades. So I got them early BWL, and they kind of served me well. Do I regret it? No. Was it fun? Yeah. Would I do it again? Absolutely not.
Good answer. Yeah. I mean, it's a cool feather to put in your hat. It's something that so few people have done. Even it was super few in vanilla, but even in classic, it's still one of the biggest accomplishments, probably aside. It might be even bigger than getting the Scarab mount. I don't know. There's different things that are involved, but those two are the two I think about, like the biggest solo achievement.
For sure. No, I think I never really. Initially I kind of wanted to go for the mount, but at the same time, doing that grind for that many hours a day, and then so many consecutive months at a time, when it was done, and I kind of didn't really want to do another set of grind. Hats off to the people who did the Scarab mount grind. I can't compare since I didn't do both. All I know is that the rank 14 grind was tedious, but it was fun at the same time. Made some friends along the way, so it wasn't all for nothing.
Awesome. All right, well let's move into the co-guild part of the interview. On episode 6, we covered like how you and how Harskare and iddqd met from Harskare's perspective. Sorry, I said episode 6 was what I meant to say. So in your words, iddqd, how did like the guild merger come to be?
So obviously Jack had his friend group, obviously, and they were playing, and I think Jack was ahead of the curve a little bit. And I think at some point I broke off from my group as well, because naturally I think we just played more from each friend group. So we got ahead, and we sort of met up, and I think it was around the Highlands. Is that right, Harskare?
Yeah, with an elite quest that I believe you needed help on, and me
Right.
being a
I
hunter
think
could.
I think we're pretty much done with the zone, but it was that giant quest, and I think I'm not quite sure where I was looking, if it was general or whatever. But at the time, I saw him run by me, and I used to ask for help, and then that's kind of how we met the first time. How the conversation went after that, I'm not entirely sure, but we somehow got in touch with each other, and we talked about merging the two guilds, and it seemed like something we could do. It sounded to me like Harskare kind of knew my name from before, and maybe thought it was a kind of a running joke. But after I guess he realized it was me, he was like, "Oh, maybe we can do a little merge, just see what happens." And I think from that point onward, it went pretty well. Honestly, it was pretty smooth sailing. We had both our crews just kind of combined together, and it worked out. I mean, a lot of mergers don't, but this one kind of did. I don't think there was any proper discussion of whether the guild should have a certain name. We kind of just merged and did what was easy, and then it just became Mark.
Awesome. Do you have anything to add, Harskar?
Yeah, like just like pounding in the point that he said mergers generally don't work. From the like timeline of retail WoW, I've had several guilds and I've had several mergers. None of them have ever worked out. So I was very, very like on the fence about this one, but I know neither side had enough people, so it was kind of necessary to even get the guild off the ground.
Yeah, I think you lucked out that it was early on too. My guess would be the further you are in the game, and the more your guild,
like the more it's established, kind of.
The harder it is, to do a merge. Could you guys each, or maybe together, explain an obstacle that you did not anticipate and how you worked through it?
So to me, Bob, I think the biggest thing to me when I started playing Classic, I wasn't really interested in items per se. I wasn't really interested in doing anything else, but just kind of like playing it like it was back in 04, 05. Obviously, starting with Molten Core and the guild got together, it became very apparent to me that it's not how the game is played anymore. It's very focused on min-maxing, and I think the initial, being kind of relaxed in how the rules were in terms of loot and stuff was polar opposite of what a lot of people wanted. I think a lot of people had this mindset of just min-maxing everything, and if they couldn't get what they were looking for, they got pretty pissy quick. And I think that caught me off guard. And I think that was an obstacle early on where some people didn't really get their way and they kind of put their foot down and, I guess rebel a little bit. They rebel against us. And they kind of wanted us to reform the system that we had. And that was something that caught me off guard because I thought we had like-minded people who just wanted to have a relaxed guild, be able to clear everything, at a steady pace. But it turned out that a lot of people felt different about that. And that is something that we sat down and discussed. And it was an obstacle at the time. Looking back at it, maybe it wasn't that big of a problem, but it was our first problem where we had to sort of take care of it because people were getting kind of upset about that quickly. I think that was the first obstacle I can remember. I don't know about you, Jack, though.
Somewhat to like piggyback off of that, I think one of the hardest things was getting the guild, like basically getting the idea of what the guild was going to be out there, because me bringing in people, ID bringing in people, like we had friends, we had family members, we had, players that we had met in competitive environments that were more hardcore. So getting all these people to raid under the same roof, under the same rules, it was pretty difficult because you had people who are, performance oriented, getting world buffs, doing all their things. And then there's people who, it's their fun night off, that don't do quite as much as others, which is fine. But up until I would say up until Nax, that has always been kind of a tension point, is getting everybody under like the same, getting everybody to have the same idea of what the guild needs to be.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's funny because that's how I started out, was just, it was my fun night off. And then slowly but surely, the guild dynamic and more and more people getting buffs and stuff like that pushed me, week after week, just a little bit further. And, it pushed me to like really research how my character worked and like what I could do to get the absolute max out of it. And so I do appreciate the way you guys kind of like silently enforced people starting to do that. You encouraged it, but didn't demand it.
Yeah. And
would you?
I was going to say, sorry, luckily for us, like Nax, I think this is with in most cases kind of weeded out the people who weren't willing to put in that kind of effort. So Nax itself kind of pushed players in that direction, and like only the players that were willing to do more of the I don't want to say hardcore, but more of the like effort put into the game, like kind of stuck around, and it developed that dynamic.
Yeah, that's awesome. To go back to a little bit of what iADD was talking about, the struggle, would you say that basically you guys just kind of stood your ground on saying you're not going to change the guild when there were so many? I mean, I think if I'm right, a lot of the people that were asking you to change the way the loot systems worked were really good players and, pumpers.
Yeah, no, I think me and Jack have talked about this countless of times, to be honest. There's been, I would say argument, I think Jack agrees with this, but there's been a multitude and a barrage of problems that stemmed from, the top of the echelon of pumpers have been, almost, not, I wouldn't say demanding, but almost close to demanding a change. So it sort of favors them. And if you have 2 or 3 people that, demands a change, maybe not make the change just because they're the best in the guild at doing what they do, but maybe take that in consideration when you're moving forward. And I think Jack came up with the idea really quickly was that if we have set a bunch of rules for a tier, like a raid tier, we should keep that and not make any changes until the next raid tier. That way you can tell the people who have a problem with the current loot system that, hey, listen, there's a problem here. And we're going to look into it, but we can't do anything until the next tier because, it'd be unfair if this was just a change that would, something that you would benefit from and not the others. And I think having that sort of approach to them sort of kept them in place. And I felt like we had a mutual agreement that if there was any issues, they'd bring it up during that raid tier and we just, take a look at it for the next. And I think that sort of worked out pretty well. Yeah, no, I think that was the perfect way to do it. That way people don't really get too pissy. They know that their voices have been heard, and we move in with that in mind. And when we make adjust a couple rules for the next raid tier, they usually became happy. And, as always, there are problems with the new system, and then you do the same thing. You just move up to the next raid tier, you take that feedback. And I think during the course of all these raid tiers, we end up at Nax, where I think everyone is pretty much happy. I mean, the system wasn't perfect. I don't think it ever was. But I think what we have now in Nax is sort of like a combined effort from, everyone sort of sharing their opinion about the system. And I think right now, I don't, at least for me, I haven't had a single complaint in Nax. So it's kind of funny to see how it's evolved to what it is now, because that is just the guild's effort of trying to make it better. And I think it definitely made it better for the guild.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I think that also stemmed, like, Harskare said, from Nax kind of weeding out the people that weren't willing to put in the effort,
Oh, absolutely. I think that had something to do with it too. Like, there were obviously some extreme cases of people who'd be like, you change this now or I'm leaving. And I think me and Jack had that approach. I was like, well, if you're leaving, you obviously didn't really want to put in the effort in the first place. And maybe you have ulterior motives to why you want this to happen right now. But if you can't wait a raid tier, then maybe we're not for you, or vice versa. And I think getting these people to leave on their own accord probably helped out too, because we don't really have to do anything. They sort of, Jack used the term weed them out. I think they weeded themselves out. And I think that made our job a lot easier.
Yeah, it is a very ugly thing that so many DPS fall into from time to time when they do top the charts, and I've made this mistake too, so I'm not above it, but you start doing all this and then all of a sudden you feel entitled, and you shouldn't, but it happens to so many people, and it's something I think a lot of DPS that start to get good really have to put themselves in check. And I think if you guys did ever give in to one of these DPS, then they would just do it again and again and again. And I think it's really cool that you guys, held your ground.
Yeah, it's definitely very easy to fall into the trap of becoming hostage to your like biggest pumpers in the guild. I feel like that happened to me a couple times where it was like, man, this guy does so much in the guild. Like, look at the meters, he's top every time, and he's threatening to leave if we don't change something. But I think like as Classic went on, you learn that one person virtually never makes that big of a difference. I think we've lost like 2 or 3 of our number one guys to, I mean, most of them ended up just quitting the game, but you figure out soon after that person doesn't actually make that much of a difference.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree.
Definitely.
I completely agree with what Jack's saying there. Like, initially we had a lot of talks like, dude, what happens if this actually goes through? But it happened. Didn't really make that much of a difference. The power dynamic and the guild skill of moving forward was completely unchanged. So when that happened a couple of times and we realized that, hey, we don't really have to be afraid of this at all, we sort of, like I said earlier, we kind of let them weed themselves out. And I think that was just better for the guild overall. So I completely agree with Jack there.
Yeah, I kind of equate it to people at, work at workplaces. Oftentimes you are really good at what you do and you make a big difference. But the second you start, really pushing people because you do that, you become not as good as you were before. And there's always a replacement out there. It's a hard lesson that a lot of people have to learn in life, but no matter how good you are, there's always a replacement.
Yeah, for sure. It's like the kiss curse, right?
Yeah.
How it is.
Yeah. I mean, but so let's kind of talk about you two's leadership dynamic. As far as I know, you two have the exact same power in the guild. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Okay. So then what that kind of leads me into is like, how do you two hash out different decisions in the guild? And do you have any like examples of where you two were kind of at opposite points and came to a compromise or something?
Do you want to go on this idea or do you want me to go? Because I think I have a pretty good idea of how
I think you
generally
should
do
take
things.
this one.
Okay. So I think for the most part, our approach is we treat our officers virtually like obviously me or ID have the like end all be all say if something is like if there's conflict, but we generally treat our officers as an even voice with us. So we'll post something in the officer channel, get everybody's input, and then like it's either majority rules or that's what it is. It's majority rules like 99% of the time. I think the like most conflict we've ever really had was regarding loot rules. Like ID is a top end player. Like he comes with like every single world buff in the game. He grinded rank 14 for his swords. He's like very performance, does everything he can to get the most out of his character. And so like there was points in the game where I think ID you can speak to this, but you wanted loot council because it's like, hey, look, we have these guys that are putting in like 10 times the effort of other players. They should be rewarded for it. Why is it that people who are AFK half the time are getting the same amount of loot and stuff as people who are doing everything they can?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's probably like some of the biggest like pressure points that we've had between each other. And we just kind of talked it out and came to the realization that like instead of rewarding these top end players by doing that, we just need to keep recruiting. And then like if these people are AFK or doing these other things, be like, hey, look, like we have other people who can take your spot. And like we need to not have people in the raid that basically everybody that's in the raid and can be in there should be treated equally because they're all putting the same amount of time in. And rather than like giving certain people preferential treatment over others, we just need to get everybody up to the same level, kind of. So I guess like the loot distribution would be the only pressure point. And the way we work through that is kind of like just talking and getting each other's perspective on it.
I agree. I think that was a great example, actually, because I think that is the only time we've ever been on the opposite side of the spectrum. I mean, with every decision, there's a negative and a positive, right? And I think this stems back from what we talked about earlier, like some of the pressure points from, it wasn't just my idea. I mean, that seed of an idea was planted in my head by the fact that we had a lot of other people who were kind of like min-maxy like me, and they were bringing up at the time that I thought was pretty valid points to why a system like, LC would work out. And then, to every idea, like I said, there's a negative and a positive. And I think you did a pretty good job of explaining that, loot council doesn't solve all the problems. It might solve it, indirectly right now, make you feel better, but it might not be better in the end. And then there was already pros and cons to that. But, after listening to Reason, of course, it seemed to just be way more cons than more pros. And I think for the longevity of the guild, I think it was just better to have a little bit of an open-minded approach when it came to the loot rules. And, it's just something that happened in in the blink of an eye. Like at the time, I was like, dude, LC seems like the way to go, doesn't it? And then Jack kind of sat me down. We had a long talk about it and, brought the pros and the cons. And it turns out like, for for longevity, you needed not to use LC because it causes more problems than it actually does good. And I kind of agree with that. At the time, I was kind of skeptic, but looking back at it, I mean, Jack was very right. And I think that is the only time we've actually been on the opposite side of the spectrum, if I believe. Other than that, we pretty much see eye to eye on most things, to be honest, without any problems.
Yeah, loot council can be better, I guess, in certain situations, but it's also a lot more work for you and the office and the officers, because you have to be completely educated on what everybody needs, too.
Right, and I think with like the guild dynamic that we have, like with real life friends in the guild of both of mine and IDs, like family members, girlfriends, everything, no matter how fair you are, there's always going to be that question of like, is this person getting preferential treatment on the loot? Like, what? I know they have some kind of personal relationship with them, and like, there's just always going to be that question in the back of people's heads. So I'd rather just completely avoid that and do a cut and dry system that's in front of everybody.
Yep. I like it. So, are there any types of decisions that you two, it seems like you two are very like-minded, so I think I might know the answer, but are there any type of decisions for the guild that you two just trust the other just to make the call, and you're gonna, kind of like a parent who, makes a call and then the kid goes and asks the other parent, and then like they have to keep like a line. Do you guys just kind of support on the fly smaller decisions that were made?
I mean, I think so. Yeah, like any like little small decision on the fly is fine. Like if something did come up where like I said something that ID thinks is wrong or didn't like make sense, he would just whisper me, and then I'd probably just take the time to think about it, and vice versa. Like, hey, this kind of goes against what we said earlier, or anything like that. Anything that happens on the fly like that generally doesn't have long lasting effects from my experience.
No, I agree. I think that makes perfect sense. Like we try, for the most part, we try to keep it a little bit under the rug. But like you said earlier, Bob, we pretty much on the same page. We never really find ourselves in a situation like that, and if we do, they usually get resolved within a matter of seconds. It just isn't a long and everything. It gets solved immediately.
Awesome. We kind of answered this one before, but like, how much do the officers contribute to decisions? And basically told me that it's kind of like majority wins.
I would say they have just as big of a role as us in a lot of scenarios as far as big decision making.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's also because we kind of welcome them to do so. Like we don't want to have ourselves make every decision either. We kind of want, I think this goes back to what we said just previously, where me and Jack, we were very like-minded, and being like-minded, sometimes we might be looking at a problem from the same side and not really see the negativity that it might bring, and having other people's opinions and other people's minds involved in those decisions sometimes help us see what the cons could be of a certain situation. Because I mean, being like-minded can sometimes also bring problems, right? We see things the exact same way. And, that also means that we sometimes don't see the problems with our ways the same way as well. So having other people share some of our feelings and thoughts about stuff just helps it be more fair, honestly.
Who's the coolest officer?
Ooh.
I'm just kidding. You don't have to answer that.
You know what I will say? So when we formed the guild, we split up the officers between people that I was familiar with and people who ID was familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
And the one kind of like person that we brought in that was not part of either of those groups was actually Yip. And Yip's been like a real giant help. Like he's kind of like the people's officer. So like if we ever get tied up in our own echo chamber, he's like a really good person to go to and be like, I don't think it's like this, So he's like been a giant part since we brought him in, I think in phase 2, I want to say, in BWL.
Yeah, I completely and wholly agree with that. It's kind of like, just like Jack said, right? When the guild was made, we made sure to bring 3 officers from both friend groups to kind of like even out the balance a little bit. And that has worked really well for us. And I think Yip was the first person that we, from a neutral perspective, someone who initially wasn't part of either friend group. And I thought that was kind of important too, because he sees and thinks differently from, my group or from Jack's group. Someone, like you said, a little bit of a people's officer, and it's been working out.
That is super cool. That is really cool, actually. Okay, so you talked about having a bunch of friends and family in the guild. Like, how do you combat nepotism or just the perception of nepotism?
You go ahead with this.
Yeah, so for me, it was quite simple. Like, I mean, I sought out to make a guild that had none of that to begin with. So whenever someone ever tried, I made it very abundantly clear that this is not your plaything. And if they didn't like it, then maybe they didn't belong. So for me, it was always very easy to shut that down. And luckily for me, the people that are my real life friends have never really sought to have such a special treatment in the first place. I mean, it's happened, but it's not happened to the extremes that maybe other people will think that it's happened. Most of the time, I laugh at them because I think the request is ridiculous. I wouldn't want to ask for a special treatment if I was in someone else's guild. That's not why I play the game in the first place. But whenever someone ever tried, I kind of just laugh in their face, and I think they gave up shortly after. So that's my point of view.
Yeah, and I will say, like, having the two different groups kind of like helps with that, because anybody will be quick to call somebody else out and be, hey, are you doing that because that's your friend, or like something like that. Luckily, we haven't had anything like that. Like, I'm the same scenario as ID, where none of my friends would really put me in that awkward situation to do that. I guess one question of nepotism would be raid spots. That might be something that somebody might look at, but in the end of the day, like, me and ID are GMs of this guild, and neither of us are getting paid for it, and it's fun and it's something we want to do. And so if like bringing somebody who's our friend into the raid keeps us motivated and that's part of the fun, I think most people can understand, like, even if that's considered a little bit of nepotism, that like to get the guild running smoothly and have the GMs motivated, that's probably worth the sacrifice.
For sure.
Yeah. I think it's in my opinion, the DKP system does help quite a bit with those thoughts too.
Yeah, that does also having everything. Yeah, that's another thing is like set up rules that you're willing to enforce on literally everybody, your friends, your family, whatever, and that everybody can see. That's in the open. And so DKP helps with that. And that was another kind of knock against Loot Council for our guild specifically.
Yep. I'm just saying, I'm glad I found a DKP guild, because I just don't know how I feel about Loot Council. I've never done it, so I just don't know. All right, so being a guild master is a huge task that comes with a lot of stress, like, and it feels it's like a job that nobody really understands until they have done it. I did it in Wrath with a 10-man to start, then we added a whole bunch of more people, and it was a 25-man, and it was a lot of work. Now, I know Harskare has been a GM before, but IDD, have you ever done the GM role before this?
No, I have not.
Okay, well, do you want to give some of your thoughts on like how it's different from what you thought it would be?
Yeah, so I think initially, I just wanted the guild to be something more, like a friend group. Just a bunch of friends having a good time, have a pretty decent community where people can have a, relaxed time. That was the initial thought behind it. But then after the merger, I understood that it took upon a little bit more of a busy job, because now all of a sudden, you're in a position where you need to listen to 39, 38 other people's opinions, and you need to take them into account for everything. You have to treat everyone on the same level. You have to listen to everyone. If you give someone 10 minutes of your time, you got to be ready to give, all the other people 10 minutes of your time as well, because it needs to be fair. I think the biggest hurdle was just having to go through and listen to everyone's different complaints, everyone's, different opinions about things, what people think is good, what people think is bad. And no matter how much you want to listen to it or not, it doesn't really matter. You put yourself in a position to do it, you got to do it. So I think that was the biggest deal. But honestly, being a GM also brought a lot of fun. It's just, I don't know, being recognized as a GM of Varg is kind of a cool thing now. So, I mean, it worked out well. So it doesn't always come with a busy job. Sometimes it's just fun and relax, have a good time with people.
It's really refreshing to hear your attitude and your pride about being the GM, because, for anybody in the audience that doesn't know, iddqd is a ex-pro gamer, successful streamer, and he's never played that card on anybody. In fact, he often doesn't even really want to talk about it, and it's just a really cool big ups to you, and something that's really refreshing in this day and age of streamer privilege.
No, I think I'm with you on there, Bob. I think there's enough of that streamer privilege going around. I don't think we need another one. So I keep my hands clean of that.
That is totally awesome. So I'm curious if the co-GM system has actually made your lives easier. I feel like it would be nice to have another person to share those hard decisions with and help bear the burden of the lashback that comes with making a hard decision. Do you guys have thoughts on that?
Absolutely think so. I mean, Jack can speak for this on his own accord, but I 100% think it's made things much easier.
It's definitely made things easier. But if I understand the question correctly, you're saying, why not even just bring in another co-GM, Bob? Is that what you're saying?
No.
Okay.
No. I think that would be that. It's hard. I think it's probably hard enough to find two like-minded people that can put their egos in a box and not be the GM. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
for sure.
I don't think adding another one would be good. My question was just, has it been like, and especially for you, you've been a GM before, like having that other person there to be kind of your rock, has that been cool?
Yeah, it's been really neat. And like, I could see a million ways where it could have gone sour too, where like one of us is dumping like negative things that happen in the guild on the other. But luckily that hasn't happened because I like to think anyways, two stand-up people that kind of have each other's backs. Mm-hmm. And yeah, if you can find somebody like this, I think it's like actually a really good thing.
Brothers from another mother,
yeah,
right?
No kidding.
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so just to go back to when the guild started, did you guys decide the level of hardcore the guild would be, or was it just a product of the people in the guild? You've kind of semi-answered this throughout different questions, but so actually I'll just jump to the last one. Do you ever wish the guild was more or less hardcore?
I like to refer to Varg as the most hardcore casual guild. Honestly. And to be frank with you, I'm okay with that. There are sometimes, I would say, moments where maybe I wish we could just, adjust the knobs a little bit and go a little bit faster, or, do something a different way, or any type of that kind of content. Sometimes you look at a speedrunning guild and you're like, that's kind of cool. Not for the fact that they clear, the raid in the sub hour. It's more like, dude, that damage looks kind of fun. Getting everyone coordinated on the same page, having all the world buffs just makes, like, to me personally, the world buff issue has never really been an issue. The reason why I get them and why I enjoy them is because I like, big yellow numbers on my screen. It's just for personal preference. I don't think or expect anyone else to do the same. And I think that's why our guild kind of has a more relaxed approach to it. And I don't mind that at all. I don't want to enforce what I feel on other people. Instead, I just look at it as extra fun. But at the end of the day, I don't know. I think we found the perfect balance, Jack. I honestly think, like, when I say that we are the most hardcore casual guild on the server, I really think we are.
Yeah, I think the level that our guild was at was kind of cool because we didn't have to alienate or have awkward conversations with people about, like, hey, you need to step this up or you're getting kicked. And then at the same time, like, we had enough self-motivated people to actually raid at a half-decent level, I would say. If not better at this point, yeah.
Yeah, so we've had a lot of people write into the show because we talk about the guild on a lot of different episodes. Especially, we talked about our progression through Nax. It's become less so now because we basically have it on farm, but we've been called sweaty casuals like quite a bit. I think that's a good way to describe the guild as a whole.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, so this question is for both of you. I don't care who goes first, but what is the best quality in your co-GM? You can just pick one, the best quality.
Who do you want to go first? Do you want me first, ID?
Go first, coward.
All right. So with the co-GM thing, I think it's kind of fell into place where I do, like, I would say the majority of like the raid time raid leading, which I know for a fact has at least a little bit. I'm not saying I'm a great player or anything. Has a little bit affected my own personal performance, just like worrying about more people. And to have ID there and be like the pinnacle of like min-maxy raider, like doing everything he can, it helps that like I don't have some pumper that's looking over at me and being like, hey, look at this guy. He's like trying to tell me what to do, and he's doing blue parses over here. We have ID doing, legendary, and everybody's striving to catch up to that. And it's like he's really walking the walk so he can talk the talk when he's asking people to do things, So I think that's very, very helpful.
Yeah, definitely.
In terms of Jack, I'm just really fucking happy that he's always calm. Like there's been many times where I have my frustration and I share them and I vent with Jack about it, and he always kind of calms me down. Like it's kind of like a flash of rage for whatever reason might have been, the issue that night, but he is very quick to jump and just be like, hey dude, listen, don't worry about it. Tomorrow's the next day, and shit goes wrong sometime, but you need to calm down and everything's gonna be fine. And I think a voice of reason is probably the only thing I ever missed when it comes to this game, and I think he does that perfectly. So I'm really happy he's always calm, regardless what happens.
That is hilarious, because I think I would pick the two exact same qualities if I was asked my favorite quality about each of you. That's hilarious.
Interesting.
Yeah, because you like lead by example, IDD, and that's awesome. And then you help anybody, like you were trying to help me, try to figure out how I could get the rend buff, and you're real help, you will help whenever asked. And Harskare is just like always the calming voice. I can't believe it's uncanny to me how you keep such a clear head 99% of the time. It's weird.
I don't know how he does it, but he does it.
And listen, just got to take a step back. It's a video game. That's all it is.
All right.
True. All right, so to kind of end it out here, we're going to talk a little bit about moving into TBC. So you guys have done an amazing job. It's a credit to you and the officers of the guild. You've ran a guild from start to end, and it hasn't fallen apart. So many guilds can't say that. We're still raiding Nax late into the game when a lot of people have thrown in the towel. So just wanted to say, well done.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
What are your anticipations for what do you anticipate the guild will go through at the beginning of TBC? Because we have a lot of people coming, not enough raid spots, and it's looking like it's going to be tough on you guys.
So to juggle back to Jack being kind of calm, like it's interesting because me and Jack had a conversation about TBC when it was announced. We sat down, we talked about it immediately. Jack was very hyped, which was concerning to me because he's always calm, but he was just like, TBC's around the corner, dude, this is great. And I was like, all right, well, I'm not going to play it. And I think at first Jack was like, all right, well, if you're not going to play it, I'm going to play it, kind of thing. That's just the TLDR version of the conversation. But Jack kind of spun me back into it because I was dead set on not playing it. I think TBC back in the day was one of the few expansions where I actually took the game very seriously, and I rated Sunwell on live when it was current. I was obviously very young. I remember most of it, but it was like one of the few expansions I'm very proud of my performance. So to me, going back to it wasn't as attractive to me as an idea that Classic was, because Classic I didn't really clear fully. But going into it, I had a talk with Jack, and I was like, hey man, listen, I don't think I'm going to play it. A couple of weeks went by, and Jack kind of spun me into the room, and he's like, dude, listen, what if we have sort of a performance-based rate? And I kind of asked him more in depth what that meant. And the whole idea behind it is kind of like the prophecy we've been running in Classic as well, where we kind of don't police anyone. We don't force anyone to do anything they don't want to. But more so, the way to naturally weed out people who might not take TBC as seriously as others is by just having a performance-based raid environment. You play for your own good, and if you do well, and you can do it to your own limit, but I mean, if you do well and you do good, you belong to be there. So it's really fair upon everyone. And I like the idea of that because, he kind of activated my min-maxing idea again, where it's like, I can, sort of fight for the spot and kind of have a little bit more of a approach I've had in Classic. And, that's kind of like what I always wanted in the first place. And then he kind of tricked me back with that idea. So I really love the approach he's having with TBC because, again, it's better for the guild, but it's also sort of like, if you don't want to be part of this, you don't have to. And I think a lot of people are already, we initially thought that a lot of people are going to fall off and just not follow through with TBC, but it seems like everyone's having a good time. And it looks to me like almost all 40, I think it's like 37 confirmed now, out of the 40 we're rating with, have said they want to come over, which was kind of surprising to me. I guess we did a good job, Jack. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, it was surprising, like how many people wanted to not only play TBC, but like stick around with the guild.
Dude, like 2/3 of the people signed up at like 2:30 in the morning when you posted it for the first time.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa.
I can tell you, and I think I speak for both of us, we were not expecting that. I think initially we thought maybe 15, 20 people would do it, but the fact that everyone jumped the gun and we saw that the interest was very much there, I don't know, it's kind of brought a tear to my eye, dude. It means that people are having a good time and enjoying it, and they'd like to continue for maybe another year. Who knows? But it seems to me like the whole idea of kind of having it more performance based. Now, I'm not saying we're going full elite speed running. What I am saying is that we're kind of taking into account the people who really want to be there has the chance to show it, and we thought that'd be the most fair. Well, Jack thought it'd be the most fair, and I really liked the idea, so I got roped back in with that idea.
And I feel like in TBC, it'll be easier for the average player to come with everything that they should be coming with. Because, I mean, getting all the world buffs is a definite hard thing to do in Classic. It's, it all depends on what kind of job you have, what kind of time you have. Are you working from home? Like, that makes it a lot easier for some. And I think in TBC, you got to come with a certain amount of things, but there's no raid logging. Like, it can be expected a lot easier. And there's only 25, right?
Yeah, I think so many guilds are going to go through the like growing pains of cutting their roster down. Guilds that are sticking around anyways. And I think, literally the only way to realistically make it quote unquote fair is to be, the people who are performing the best and want to be there, they can be in the raid.
Okay. So let me pose a question to you, because in addition to the 37 people that have said that they're coming to TBC, we also have a whole bunch of like people's real life friends coming. I mean, Mel's brother, who's a Mythic Raider, is going to come and wants to play with us. Like he's not expecting to be in the main raid, but he wants to play with us, and he's an extremely skilled player. And have you guys ever had a thought about like, a quote unquote B team for the people that are slower? Because a lot of these sweaties in our guild are going to have multiple characters. So maybe, it's kind of like some of the like sweaty alts that are with, some of the lower performers in the guild. Have you thought about that at all?
So if, like, I don't know how deep into TBC you want to get, like regarding first phase and stuff like that. Do you want to talk about it a good bit? We have the time for it?
Sure.
Okay. So, to me, anyways, in my head, the first phase of TBC is like, it's almost a warm up. Realistically, there's only 3 bosses that you kill with 25 people. There should be no like reason we couldn't scrap together 2 full raids to clear that every week if it's like, containing alts or whatever. To me, anyways, TBC really feels like it starts on the second phase with SSC and TK. So I think like from experience in Classic, the most people fall off in the first phase. There's hype around the game. People want to get in there and try it. Some people find out that it's not for them. Some people find out that a brand new game came out and they want to just jump ship to a different game. So I think like at least in the first phase, we'll easily be able to facilitate everybody that wants to play. I don't think that should be an issue at all. And then once the fall off happens and the people who want to be there are sticking around, that's when we would kind of have to whittle down the roster. And I definitely think there is room for me personally. I'm going to play 3 characters at the highest level I can. So I know I'll be wanting to get like alts into raids and stuff like that. So I think, like you said, people who don't want to go as like hardcore or performance based could group in with alts, and we can definitely make like second raids and stuff like that.
Well, and there's going to be a lot of people, me included. Like, I'm basically planning on trying to tank either a B raid with my warrior or like soft res pugs or something of that nature to get the different things that I need for my PvP focused warrior. But I'm going to be going into TBC with a lot of really good, tank gear, and I plan on really learning the intricacies of tanking and using that as my means to get the different things that I need to work up Stun Herald,
Yeah, I think a lot of people are going to be in the same boat as you, including myself. Like I have a warrior that I plan on doing a lot of arena with. And yeah, I need the consumes out of SSC and TK to build that Storm Herald. And I don't think you're going to be alone on that one. So we should hopefully have a lot of motivated alts.
That's awesome. IDD, do you have anything to add to that?
I mean, I think, honestly, I don't really have much to add to that. I actually don't. I think what he said kind of echoes what I think and what I feel. The only difference between me and Jack is I probably won't have that many alts to play with. I'll probably have one to just fuck around a little bit with, but obviously the rogue stays the main. I mean, I get to keep my title, so it'd be a waste if I didn't.
Yeah, definitely got to keep that title. And if you're going to be our rogue, and I don't know what your guys' thoughts are, but most people say that you're not bringing more than one rogue, so that also leaves you open to get Warglaives, which will be pretty cool.
We'll see. I mean, that goes back to what we talked about before, right? No streamer privileges. Like, we're going to do it fair and square, and whoever deserves them the most are going to get them.
I mean, I do get that, but I don't even know if I would call the Wargraves streamer privilege. Those are really GM privilege. I mean, tell me anybody that gets them that's not a guild master, like gets them first. I can't think of any.
I mean, I think, in the point of like, a performance-based raid, I think this is a great example too. It's like, it should go to whoever does the most with them, right? Whether that be me or Jack or you or whomever who can wield them. I mean, it should go to whoever performs the highest and has the DQP to buy them. So first of all, if you're in the raid when it drops, then you already are deserving to do whatever you can to get them, right? I mean, that's the whole point. And if you happen to plan your cards right and you have enough to get them, then you should have them. And, maybe it is a GM weapon of that sort, but I don't see it that way. I'd rather just win them by sheer performance alone. And that's how I look at it.
Okay, cool. It's kind of weird to ask thoughts on TBEC because there's going to be so many things we did not anticipate that are going to come up. There's going to be so many things, but is there anything else you're kind of thinking about going into TBC besides anything we've talked about so far?
I would say to your point, you're saying only like most of these videos that are like built around building meta comps for TBC and stuff. Suggest like one rogue just if you're min-maxing it perfectly and stuff. What I would say to people is be a little bit more open-minded because I think like the gap from the worst DPS in the game to the best is much smaller. And a lot of the data people are pulling are from like these private servers. And as we know, like Classic was much different than the private servers.
Yep.
And I would just tell people to keep an open mind and don't just shun away people who are playing a spec that doesn't or a class that doesn't seem like terribly off meta or seems off meta, sorry, if they're like a very good player and they can really, hold their own.
I think I used to echo that same opinion. I don't have much to add to that. I think that makes perfect sense.
All right, guys. Well, I mean, I don't have anything else to add unless you guys have anything that I might not have thought of about the co-GM stuff. Any closing statements?
Nope. Not really much to add from my point. What about you, Jack?
Nope. Just appreciate you having us on and
yeah, absolutely.
Looking forward to the future.
Hell yeah.
Well, dude, I appreciate you guys coming on and taking your time to chat with us. I know there's a lot of our listeners that love the Vargflocken talk and love the guild dynamic talks, and I think they're really going to get a kick out of this.
That's cool. That's really cool to me, actually, that we have this guild that like people outside have an interest in. That's just a neat concept to me that we've built this thing and more than just the people that are involved have some kind of vested interest in it.
It is super cool. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and close it out. I'm not really going to do any closing statements. I'm not sure yet if this is going to be added to one of our podcasts or if it'll just be like a Wednesday extra episode release. So we're just going to do socials. Where can we find you, Harskare?
You can. I'll shout out my socials, but I hardly use them.
No, but you do use Twitch, right?
I've streamed, I think, 2 of our Naxes, and I do actually plan on streaming, much more in TBC, if not only for like memory's sake for me to be able to go back and like look at the cool progression that we've made and stuff like that. But yeah, it would be twitch.tv/Harskare, Harskare. And then my Twitter, which I think I have 2 tweets ever, is Harskare32. And that's it.
Awesome, man. iddqd, I know you have plenty. So where can we find you?
You can find me mostly streaming every day on twitch.tv/iddqd and the same handle on Twitter /iddqd. And that's about it.
Awesome. And you can find me on Twitter at Blazzin_Bob. That's BLAZZIN_BOB. You can also check out my Twitch. I'm not a streamer. I stream when I want to and on a whim. But if you follow my Twitter, you'll know when I go live, and that's twitch.tv/Blazzinbob. So come by, say hi. I really just do it so that, someone can talk to me while I play. That's all. All right, guys, we're out of here. Thank you so much for coming again, and I'll see you guys next week in Raid.
Thank you.
Yeah.
See ya.
Thanks for listening to a Mash Those Buttons production. If you enjoyed the show, you should check out mashthosebuttons.com and see if any of our other shows might interest you. All of our shows are available on your podcast platform of choice like Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and more. If you enjoy our content, you can help support Mash Those Buttons by becoming a patron at patreon.com/mashthosebuttons, where you can receive Patreon bonuses for as little as $1 a month. You can connect with Mash Those Buttons at twitter.com/The Mash Network, facebook.com/mashthosebuttons, or join our Discord at mash.gg/discord.